Welcome. Let's talk EVE Online. I am Matterall here on Wednesday, August 19th, 2020. I'm hanging out with Caleb.
Hey guys.
That fancy engineering. We also have Tiberius here with us. Oh, look at that puny picture. You need a cam. Tiberius, you there? Must have stepped away. Okay. Let's talk some EVE Online the way we used to with some stats up front.
It looks like there's some interesting movement.
Where?
Well, in the added things where you were talking about corporations that were gaining and which ones were kind of bleeding, which I think is kind of relevant right now.
Well, let's actually look at that over here on the right-hand side. You see a silent company, high-sec group that absorbs just about everybody that comes into the game that doesn't know you don't have to join a corporation right away. Up 1,000, basically, 925 new members in the last 7 days. Now, that tells me that EVE Echoes is having a spillover effect. People are coming to EVE Online after checking out EVE Echoes, and a lot of those people are getting pulled into whatever corporation invites them, just like EVE Echoes, right? Like apparently everybody's joining corporations and EVE Echoes. So I think
apparently it's I think it's because it's almost like a requirement for one of the
experience, right?
Well, no, it's part of the whole tutorial new player experience thing that I think you kind of have to try and join a corporation. It's almost like an achievement.
Yeah, but I think the reward is you get like experience points or something, or skill.
Yes, something like that. Something like that.
Yeah. So think about the possibilities here, right? Like you see, there's 5 million people who sign up for this mobile game, and they start to play it a little bit. They're like, "This is really cool." Then they find out, like, "Oh, there's a bigger version of it." I don't know what segment of that 5 million didn't know about EVE Online before EVE Echoes, but there's a percentage. And those guys say, like, "Well, I might as well make an account on that one too, in case they're connected, in case they will be connected, or whatever." So they go ahead and they make an account for EVE Online as well, and they jump in. And immediately, boom, they get an invite to a corporation saying, "Come join us. No obligations. Just hang out with us. It's free. We'll teach you how to play this game."
EVE Online is really good at that, right? Regardless of what else you say about the new player experience. I do think that if you actually take the time to figure out who's around and where you can drop in and actually learn about the game, we're pretty good at actually getting people a very good experience. I think, didn't Hilma say that it's almost triple on the player retention when a player actually goes into one of those new corporations? So the feeder corporations, right? The Brave and Karma Fleet and whatnot, right?
I don't remember the triple number. I just know that it's...
I'm pretty sure it was really, really high. He was basically applauding the community for how successful we are at actually organizing and introducing players to EVE Online.
Right. Well, it's a well-known fact that retention is better if you're in a group. That's just established and that's one of the few things they've let us know. That is, CCP has let us know that if players join groups, they stay longer. They have a better experience, and it is a huge effect. Whether it's 3-to-1, I don't know, but it's definitely significant. And the scenario is people coming from Echoes spill into EVE Online and get snatched up by this high-sec group that's inviting everybody, right? They don't discriminate. They invite everybody. And so they're up 900 people this week in the last 7 days. So I don't know. I see that as kind of a recruiting bump. Let's go back.
I just hope that they're good at also then handling the pickup, right? Because that type of growth requires a lot. I'm almost inclined to say that someone over in EVE Echoes forgot to tell the EVE player base that we needed to reinforce our recruitment nodes, because handling 1,000 people in a week, I was like, holy crap, that's not easy because where do you send them? Are you just going to give them things to read, or are you actually going to also socially integrate them? So I think it's a little bit extreme, but of course, there's most likely going to be more of that.
Yeah, I wonder if we're going to see an improvement from like Karma Fleet and those sorts of things. But yeah, you can see here they've been on a really steady incline anyway since July.
Yeah, last month has actually been what 3,000, I think the number was, which is quite impressive.
Yeah, I mean, we watched these guys break the 10,000 mark, and that was impressive. Now they're essentially 3 times bigger. So size will grow size, and that is Silent Company. These are essentially new players forming into one corporation, one coalition, one corporation. Actually, they have 25 corporations. Let's see. Most of them will probably be in one. Yeah, you can see. Well, actually, he's broken it up into different groups. That's interesting. You have a Russian academy, and that's a considerable 3,000. So you know what? He has paid attention to other languages. Good for him.
And we need to do a little bit of an applause for the fact that it's a penguin with a rocket on its back. That is the cutest thing ever.
Yeah, he knows how to mark it. It's got a nice amount of dust and dirt on it, which makes it very spacey. Look at statistics. Most of these are usually, yeah, look at that.
Yeah, and of course, we don't know how many are lapsed accounts that really come in, check it out, and then leave again, right? Because again, player retention-wise, we would know that if they manage to hold on to like 40%, they're doing really good. So at least 60% of those new things coming in might actually be something that we could consider that's dead accounts that's not been cut out yet for inactivity.
Well, yes, and what's this? Is he speaking Triglavian? This all be Russian.
And I'm actually a fan of the fact that they don't purge, because you don't know if these people might actually then come back at some point. So purging, if you're already running something like a very new grow-friendly thing, is actually bad. It's dumb, and it shouldn't really be done unless it's really something that bothers you, that you have all these inactive accounts affiliated with you.
Yeah, good point. Well, so that's Silent Company picking up 900 members in the last 7 days. Again, good for them. They're in a position to really, really benefit from Eve Echo's people exploring Eve Online, even this soon after Eve Echo's launches. So good for them.
Okay, people are saying my audio is horrible. Is that in Discord too, or is it on the out?
Your volume is high enough. It's
But they're saying there's some sort of high-pitched noise. But can you hear that in Discord? Because I'm pretty sure that there was nothing wrong yesterday or earlier when we were talking.
No.
Can't hear it in Discord, but let's have Tiberius talk. Say anything, read any sentence, and we'll see if it's that. Tiberius?
I guess nobody can hear me.
Now I can hear you.
Okay. I think he couldn't hear us.
He couldn't hear us.
He thought that we couldn't hear him. That's one of those classic funny ones when Discord makes one of those boo-boos. I've had that a few times. It's really strange.
Yeah. I do not know what the high-pitched is. I don't hear it, so I can't correct for it. Or I can't tell you to correct for it.
No, it's clearly that it can't really be my side, because if you're not hearing it on Discord, it's not my side. It's somewhere else. It's coming out bad.
How bad is the high pitch? All right.
But okay, if you want to go back to the numbers and shift a little bit to
well, there's more numbers.
The bleeding.
Yeah, one more. Let's see. Look at this. Then, oh my God! Let's look at that. Okay, so what we were just talking about is Silent Company, and they're at. Instead of me twisting my head, I'll bring this over here to me. They're at 28,000 and a half, basically, and Goonswarm is at 29,000. They are 500 members away, on paper, from passing Goonswarm as the largest alliance in the game. That's an amazing number. And Goonswarm just lost 500. Now they do purge, so those could be empty accounts or people don't play anymore, or people who actually took off. They didn't like their situation. And that's something to look at, because Initiative also lost 500. How many of these 500 are people who are no longer having the situation that they wanted, right? You can see those here. Yeah, that's amazing. That Silent Company is basically the size of Goonswarm. Yeah, Pandemic Horde picks up 380. Pretty interesting.
I'm being told it might actually be my fan that's kind of cutting in the background. I'm trying now to use the noise reduction and see if that helps.
Right. Okay, and so that's it for the most striking thing is alliance movements in the last 7 days. Is Silent Company in the position to be able to get a lot of these new players coming in, maybe from Eve Echoes, and they will benefit from here into the future because of their way they're modeled. They snatch up new players as they come into the game as quickly as possible. And they are now basically the size of Goonswarm. It's a high-sec group the size of Goonswarm. However, the actual players are probably different. Goonswarm probably has 3,000 players. Silent Company probably has half that. And that's an estimate based on the voting power of the blocks. The guy that runs Silent Company wasn't able to turn all his membership into enough votes to get on CSM, and that tells you something about the size of the operation there. Tiberius, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Excellent. Yeah.
There
Okay,
we go.
we're just wrapping up this one section with alliance movements. And the interesting thing is the Goonswarm and Initiative both lost about 500 characters. Meanwhile, Horde has picked up 380. And you have to think, is that a switch of sides that some people are doing?
No, it's it looks like there's some of the groups right now have been doing a bit of a purge run where they basically clean out stuff that's inactive. I think it's pretty normal in wars, and you might see them tick back in when activity ramps up. And then you're seeing that some are actually adding things. I don't know if that's new members or more likely, I think it's activation of accounts that you think you might need. So your scouts, your alphas and whatnot.
Yeah. Oh, so
So I just had a
sorry, let me just say this. Justin Kennard, I think, isn't he the leader of that group? My corp has just done a purge of inactive users. I'm not sure who you are, Justin, so I'm going to look you up. But if you are the CEO or executor, we want to talk to you. Go ahead. What were you saying?
I just had a look at Silent Company. Silent Company's had 665 active PvP characters in the past week, and Goonswarm has had 3,600. So pretty significant difference in activity level. Obviously, because there's a war going on, I'm sure those numbers are probably inflated, but even still.
Well, it's less that than the guys that are joining Silent Company aren't fighters. They're not PvPers. So, I mean, they're not yet, right? In fact, I'm surprised that 600 of them are. They're just getting started. They're just getting there. They're not the same group. We're just talking about size. So we're not saying Silent Company is bigger and stronger than Goonswarm. Okay, let's just stop anybody who's going in that direction. We're saying people-wise, they're absorbing as many as Goonswarm, but the groups themselves aren't comparable. Goonswarm is filled with people who PvP, and Silent Company is filled with people. And I don't think a lot of them are even getting started, much less.
I'm just looking forward to seeing if, change in the war theater will add more accounts to some of the big groups, because I do think that it's useful to have a lot more things on standby and in different locations. So it's something that I'm a little bit puzzled that hasn't happened yet in a massive way.
This the overall delta inside of Eve Who is Goonswarm down 440, and
That's it.
Silent Company up 1300. So that 900, if you extend it beyond 7 days, is actually
Well,
1300.
it's just because we were talking about this in some of the coverage of some of the Keepstar stuff, both the demolition and the actual fight and the harassments, that those strategies are actually is composed of very low requirement, low skilled doctrines, right? So it would actually make perfect sense if you are wealthy enough to just say, okay, I'm just going to add 5 more accounts, alphas, train them up, boost some SP into them, and park them in strategic locations so the fleet sizes can be really easily reached, right? So you can do these defense strategies, or well, also offense. Pretty sure that there's low requirements on both sides. So I would expect that there was a lot of padding with low skilled accounts coming into the groups.
All right. So anyway, we found that interesting. Let's go to some of the stuff. Okay, the big news obviously is that Narsha has changed from a 0.5 system to a nullsec system in security only, which means there's no penalty for PvPing at all in there. So anybody that goes in there can fight anybody else, and there's no penalty anymore, which allows that place to be completely dominated by hunters. And so it's not going to be used by the prey who were hauling things between 2 trade hubs, Jita and Amar. Jita remains in the north, Amar remains in the south. They are now essentially divided. The new route that's safe-ish, is 45 jumps. It's no longer a viable relationship. I'm sorry, Amar's going to have to break up with Jita. What can I say?
Yeah, it's sailing away. It's lost at sea. But the interesting thing about the fake null thing and the fake low sec, and the way that they've built this invasion design to make security basically dynamic is a little bit fun, because there's so many things missing, and that hasn't really been decided how to manage that. The fact that it looks like the autopilot, the ant colony algorithm isn't really working, and when you add prefer safe route, it doesn't really get that. You have to say avoid specific system Nyaja, otherwise it's just going to ignore your settings. So there's just a lot of things because the things are not tied together, and I'm kind of interested in seeing if CCP is going to slowly add these things. So I would say it would be interesting if this fake null gets the option of industrial sinos, right? Stuff like that, and also gets hooked into the whole autopilot system, and almost becomes the new way of handling security status.
Yeah. And by the way, are you supposed to be smoking on screen?
Well, it's not weed, so I think I'm okay. I've seen plenty of
Isn't it against
streamers smoke weed. So should I switch to smoking weed or vaping? Is that really a good choice?
we just don't want hands coming near mouths. But go ahead and finish. We're looking at Narja. They've totally taken over. Narja and Udama, right? They're pretty much right next to each other, and they are choke points in that old, we'll call it highway between Jita and Amar. And they have jumped up to the most active NPC systems, meaning people are killing NPCs in there, and that can only happen when an invasion occurs, which is what has happened, and that's why you see their numbers jump up to.
It's crazy numbers, right? Yeah. It's like a bonkers spike, because, well, basically NPCs have been slaughtered for 72 hours or something in Niaja. So yeah, very efficiently, might I say.
Yeah. Well, actually, let me take that back. That's actually the NPC stuff. It hasn't broken the top 10 yet, which would be very hard to do now that I think about it. It did sound a little bit crazy, but they'd have to crack 45,000 NPCs in order to get into the top 10. But I'm sure they've gone way up. We can check that out too. But where they have gone up is player versus player kills. They top the list there in most violent systems in high sec. So Narja has 3,480, basically 3,400 kills in the last 24 hours, and Udama right behind it with 3,200. So let's look at Narja, though. I want to see how many NPCs have been killed here. You can check that out, drilling in. Local pirate Sancha, pod kills. Oh, I like that. The pod kills are up to 2,500. Good on them. Yeah, you know what? The NPCs, I guess people are ignoring them. It's only like 1,200 in the last 24 hours. At 3 hours. Yeah. All right. Well, not a big NPC thing, but there definitely is NPCs to be killed in there. I think people are ignoring them so they can kill each other. I think that's probably what happened in the last day. Udama 2. Now, Udama, by the way, it turns out is the right kind of system to be invaded. So if Narja wasn't enough, you may have Udama also. It's down here. As you can see, it's kind of a bottleneck in the middle.
Yeah, it would be nice, but I'm told that the likelihood of that happening is very low because it's somehow tied into the star class system. So it's mostly or more likely that the invasions hit blue star systems. And in Udama, I think it's a yellow star.
Yeah, well, yellow stars are no, I think it's blue. We can take a look. Its sun type is that's class C. I think you have to look at celestials here. Its star is oh, it's a red giant. It's a K5 red giant. Now I wonder why that was pointed out to me. I think Ashrathi mentioned that it was a K5, and I was like, okay, that must mean something. So maybe it won't be taken over. But here's why that would have been important. Because you can still get to Dodixie in 15 jumps from Jita. But if you break Udama off, that's going to complicate things quite a bit. In fact, that would break the relationship between Jita and Dodixie, which has now become the favorite child.
Yes and no.
No?
It would for normal usage. This is the big difference in all of this, right? This primarily hurts people that do not have jump freighters, but people that have jump freighters can basically work around all this, right? There's alternative routes, and when it comes to say import-export from Null, it doesn't go through Udama. It comes in from Ignoiden and through Ian Oster, as far as I'm aware, mostly.
Let me go back and fix this route to be safer. Prefer high sec. And go. It's funny because it's 11 jumps with going through dangerous areas, but it's only it's actually 17. I remember 17 jumps to Jita going through a safe route, so it's not really worth taking a shortcut. But if you take Udama out of the mess there, which I don't think you can, but let's see. Udama. We want to add that as a place to avoid. You just drag it there? No.
Yeah, you just click add, it's fine.
No, I know, but I wonder how you add it down here to places to avoid. Oh, here it is. It's a different area to add.
Yeah, it's the one underneath there.
Learning all over again. So now I want to go from here to here, and I want to avoid here, and I hit go, and it'll do the calculations for me. And you can see it was 17 jumps, and it jumps over to about the same as going from Jita to Amar, which will be the 44 jumps. It's not tenable. Besides that, you land in Heck before you even get there. Here's Heck over here. Where was it? There's Bay, and there's Heck right there at 36. So interestingly, if anything were to happen to you, Dama, the inheritor would be Heck, probably Wrens. Wouldn't that be something?
Well, there's just a lot of stuff that can come of all of this. At least if more systems are taken out like this. Right now, it's primarily this one that's a very newsworthy story, especially because of all of the effects it's going to have. I don't necessarily think that many of the ones you mentioned, things like Wodama is going to be hit by invasion. I think it's very unlikely, and I don't think we're going to see Imperium going in and doing more of this shenanigans, because I think this was very much you want this toy, you can't have this toy, right? Where strategically it wouldn't really make sense for them to disrupt things even further, because this time around it did get a little bit of applaud from many of the RP guys in high sec. But if it becomes almost like a disruption and deliberate destruction of trade routes and systems in high sec, I don't think it would be good for optics. So, and it's also a waste of time. They're busy fighting a war. So I don't think we're going to see another participation from Goons. That's just my guess. Of course, it could be completely wrong, because they got a little bit of bloodlust from winning this one.
All right, so let's just review real quick. Narja is gone. We have trade routes interrupted. We see a lot of movement, a lot of interest, not only from high sec, but especially from null sec, which was surprising. If the map gets essentially carved up so that people have to become more regional, what is going to happen to this game? Like, how is this changing, and why is it so important? I think we need to emphasize that for people to really understand what their next move is.
Well, I still believe that it's kind of, it's first of all, from CCP's side, it's to give us some sort of agency of actually effectively changing the map in meaningful ways. And this is definitely meaningful if it's the right systems. But it's also, I believe, a path on a much larger storyline that we touched upon yesterday a bit. And of course, we had Ash on. And I've basically been spreading the meme Gita by Christmas, because I honestly do believe that is the conclusion to the whole Trig invasion story, because Trigs will shift and become something else on the other side. And then we're into a new cycle of narrative from CCP that's going to be using all the things that we've experimented with and been presented over the past 3 years, right? Everything from drifters and incursion stuff and faction warfare and trig invasion and forward operating bases and hell, even resource wars. I think they're going to eventually figure out how to tie all these things together and launch something on a scale that will be very, very impressive. Because if they tie many of these things into the Imperium Wars, right, instead, that is basically going to refresh a lot of the old stuff. So you might see more work on faction stuff and how that ties into Null. And there's just so much that can be done. And I do think that that's been their dream for quite a while.
Yeah. What do you think, Tiberius?
I think this is kind of a ploy, or not really a ploy. I think this is CCP's way of maybe trying to force a degree of interdependency among each other, because one of the big things that Amar and Gita is known for is its imports and exports between each other, and because the route was so short, maybe this was a way for CCP to kind of shake things up a little bit in terms of introducing Amar and Gita have been the brainchild the hub of trade for the past what now, Caleb, 10 years almost, to a large extent.
Gita's been alone, and the other hubs have been dead for almost 5 years.
Right. So the last one I think to fall was Dodixie. I remember Dodixie was still kind of active in 2014, 2015-ish. But it's really kind of fallen off the map. So I think this is kind of an interesting way to see a bit of interdependency. And I think it's also going to open up opportunities for other people to take advantage of the situation, and a bit more of a regional economy as opposed to moving stuff around. I think people are going to. I think there's still going to be to a degree of lots of moving stuff around. Like Caleb was saying, is that this is really going to affect people that have freighters instead of jump freighters. But once people kind of adapt and get into the jump freighter, what is essentially going to end up being the jump freighter meta, I think there's going to be a degree of a return to normalcy. But yeah, I think this is an interesting way of showing interdependency among the regions.
Well, doesn't that improve the playability of the game for people who have jump freighters, which is a high skilled and expensive ship? So you're kind of reserving like that volume trading for people who've been around a while or who jump right into those resources. And I imagine that new players then are kind of locked out for a while, or players who are trying to earn their way up either through skills or through ISK. They're going to have to be a lot more regional, and the international or global suppliers are going to be people that are more, well, they're just better off. I don't know. I think that, and that might be fine, right? Like if you're going to be a global trader, you got to like pay some dues, or you have to invest some money, and it's got to take you a while. You can't just jump into the high-end gameplay there. It's something to aspire to when you're in a hauler having to jump 27 jumps to get to a trade hub that could have been gotten to with a jump freighter in 2.
So one thing that I'm going to be keeping my eye on for Amarr, with the graphic that was released on Reddit, and there's been a few now that have been released by the community, that has shown that Amarr is essentially at the end of the quote unquote new Silk Road, essentially. And what I think that's going to essentially mean for Amarr is that it's going to increase the opportunity for regional providers in Amarr. I talked about it yesterday. I think that if Providence gets organized, reorganized under Wrecking Crew and all the other small little coalitions that get together, and they become, essentially they have the potential to be an industrial powerhouse and supply Amarr. While it's going to be next to impossible for large freight ships to essentially get through Niarja because of the way that the mechanics are, it's not going to stop people from doing an interceptor jump through that chain. So let's say, for instance, that you need to get to wherever you need to go and Amarr is closer. Well, people are still going to be looking at the opportunity to, interceptor over or shuttle over to Amarr. And, that's it's provides a pretty ripe opportunity for people to do that. And if a regional provider can give a competitive market as, something like, I'm just going to throw a random number out there, JITA plus 10% or something like that, people are still going to be willing to pay for that convenience. So I still think that there's plenty of opportunities for Amarr, but there needs to be the right group at the right time to get their stuff together in order for it to work, in order for it to make it happen.
I think maybe that's why we're seeing a scramble from nullsec. I've noticed there's a lot of activity going on. Can't hear whoever's talking. Who is that?
I think that's Caleb.
Yeah, whatever you did to muffle your fan, it got you too.
Okay, no noise suppression then.
Yeah, noise suppressed you right out. Here's the thing. You need, just take a quick moment for production here. You need a mic close to your voice box, and you probably need a new mic. Maybe we'll help fix that up for you, because you can't speak across a room and get picked up by a mic where everything else doesn't get picked up too.
In this case, it's because my fan is not liking the heat wave, so it might be a little bit more busy than normal.
Probably.
I'm definitely going to figure out how to fix this for future shows, but for some reason, my front jack does not accept my SteelSeries headset, so I'm going to figure it out and come up with a little bit of a better solution. It's just I can't do it right now. But as I was saying, there's a lot of invested stuff going on with Null in HiSec because of the way that they have their whole structure thing running. Basically, they have this cartel where everyone gets a piece of the pie, so they didn't have to fight over who had access to what region. So basically, we are seeing the scuffle and the shuffle happening because the players in that game is okay. It's complicated, but a lot of things can happen, and this is really about the fact that there's entrances into Sanct from Null in Botane and in Ignoiten, which is where they come in, and that means that that's going to be even more important now because everything else or alternative routes have been kind of cut off.
Well, I think they positioned themselves pretty well. I think they positioned themselves pretty well a while ago when they decided there was some profit to be made in HiSec. And now that they've had a taste of that, and well, of course, they were on top of it right away. I know that people say that when the trade tower went up, that's when nullsec got involved, because it was, a year ago when the drifters were coming out and everybody was mad, and they formed this null first Discord, which wasn't really used at all. Or at least in any important way. And but there were relationships that were made at the same time that probably through CSM that created the situation that we have now, where the one group that was running the HiSec area, which was Horde, they were the ones that were doing the protection racket with Icy and Jeronica's what Yeti. Yeah.
Mogul, right? Mogul was one of the bigger players back when Null was not yet involved. Of course, Mogul is indirectly maybe a little bit affiliated with Null because it's still composed of a lot of Null-interested entities, but it was completely neutral because that was the whole concept.
Right. The concept, be neutral, serve everybody, gives you a wider market, but they had to find protection. Now, Mogul isn't a person. Mogul is a group. The group's run by Jeronica. Jeronica is the person and the player. But Mogul, you can't just exist as a big market trade hub and not expect to be destroyed by any group that decides they can do it that's bigger than you. So at that point, you have to look for allies. And when you're in a certain region like the North, your natural ally is the powers that can get to you quickest. So in that case, Jeronica was in Pandemic Legion, but he didn't play with them. He wasn't really a part of them. He just existed with them, and it was more of a protection than anything else. But
you affiliate with the ones that you're friendly with to help you in case of aggression, right?
Or the ones that'll take your money if you're paying them off. And so Icy didn't become friends with NC Dot or PL, but he hired Horde. But he didn't hire a Horde, he hired an FC out of Horde, and the FC was given permission to do this sort of thing. So it wasn't really Horde, it was more like Astropilot or whatever his name is. And he's the one that provided the protection, and the subcontractor in that arena was a group like Pirate, right? And those guys were pretty effective. There were other mercenary groups in HiSec that could protect you. But there was word that the mercenary groups were all kind of what do you call it? Colluding with one another. The HiSec mercenary collusion scandal. So
yeah, and this is because they of course have ties and interests, and maybe they don't necessarily like the consequence of a contract, or the fact that if one group says no, and then they are all in this colluding cartel-like thing, then they pretty much blacklist you and say no one in the group can take that contract. It's like, okay, then you have to go elsewhere, and this is where you can do personal relationships and of course affiliations with other null blocks that might be able to help you.
Well, what's weird is that protection becomes, it starts out local, it ends up being regional, and then eventually gets global. And that's what happened. And Horde was on top of that right away. And they had it for about a year to 2 years. I would say 2 years. And then last year, about this time, when basically when after Tribute and Veil fell, right, when the North was knocked out of the North and they moved to drones, they were too far away to really protect IC's interests in, or ICU's interest near Jita. So at that point, you saw Test come up and fight Horde, and just kind of combat them. And in that moment, they looked and said, "We can take over this territory because Horde alone can't overcome Test or Legacy Alliance plus backup from Goon Swarm." So at that point, it became possible to take over that marketplace and start to run the protection racket. But they did something else. They said, "We're not going to protect you, industrialist, who's going to pay us. What we're going to do is we're going to take it all over, and you will work with us. So you'll manage the money and you'll get a cut, but we're the ones that are going to own everything." And that's when Vily put up that's when Test put up the trade tower. And I think what I like about this, I won't lie, I'm a fan of Vily's insofar as the way he's done this, is that he hasn't hogged the money. He's splitting up the money and making sure everybody's getting a part of it. So he made sure that Horde got a part of it so they wouldn't contest. He made sure his allies at the time, Goon Swarm, would get a part of it so they wouldn't contest. And you've paid them off. And those three groups essentially lock up that market, because even if you have a group like Snuff, Test is capable of bringing enough people to fight off Snuff. And if they're not, they can rely on Horde, which would clearly be enough people to fight off Snuff. And that's your biggest threat in anything that's high sec. So yeah, he became Don Vily, which is a hilarious way to put it, but he definitely made sure to put the priorities right. The other thing he did right is he didn't alienate the audience. And this is where I think Mittani goes wrong, like all the time, is he's so interested in his own group that he has to constantly have his group identify with themselves. And the only way you do that is to outline where the line is and who's in the line and who's outside the line. That's just something that happens philosophically. In order to have a group, you have to have boundaries. In order to have boundaries, you have to have something on the other side of that boundary. And so his people are most important to him, which means that everybody on the other side of that is not. And that's where you get the name calling of pubbies and people who don't belong. And that's how he distinguishes the favored children from everybody else. But everybody else in this case, all the people outside that are pubbies, are the customers. And so he's, over time, alienated a customer base that won't buy anything off Imperium. Or that's what I think. I'm not sure that's completely true because we don't know what all the statistics are of where people buy things and all that kind of stuff. But I'm talking about the messaging. Vily didn't have to do that. He names his structures not in a self-referencing, isolated way. Like if you look at the two Keep Stars initiative, it was what was his name? DJ's retirement fund. That's an inside joke. If you know who DJ is, you can laugh at that joke. If you have no idea who DJ is, it doesn't mean anything to you. And so
it seems to mean a lot, right? Because a lot of the non-goons still think that the DJ is running the show in there.
That's a different topic. I'm going to stay on this one for a second. But what I think Vily did is he named his stuff that was acceptable and palatable to the player base, which was Tranquility Trade Tower, not the Test Trade Tower, not the Vily Trade Tower, not some Mimi Subaru Trade Tower, right? He included...
No, it's a great name. It's a great name. Yeah. It's very neutral. It's very professional, very corporate.
Right. It took it seriously.
I would just like to see the whole thing develop a little bit more in the serious business stuff that Mogul was trying to introduce. But the null entities don't need that. They're fine how it works.
Yeah. I'm not overthinking this Vsidious because messaging is a big part of EVE Online, always has been. There's a difference between the reputation that Tissue has, for instance, had as an alliance versus the reputation that even Horde had or anybody else. And people will look at this and they will be passed, through generations of EVE players, they will be passed information on who they should like and who they should not like. And that is still, I mean, it's really weird, but like, racism exists in EVE Online, except it's not really about race. It's about like corporations, which is kind of interesting. But people who have no business hating other people do so because they've been indoctrinated to. And that is across the board. You'll find people in Northern Coalition who hate Goonswarm. No reason to hate Goonswarm, but they do. Well, that's because the information has been passed to them. And that's how it works. Yeah, it's pure tribalism. And messaging is a big part of tribalism. It adds up over time. Matterall is wrong. Well, come on, Goody DuPont, and tell us what you think. We're open for people to come in and give us alternative opinions. So going back to the marketplace thing, we have Vily coming in, making something that's palatable, it's messaged right, and he doesn't reference it much. He never throws it in anybody's face. He doesn't even talk about it because he's trying not to even have it become anything that can become polarizing. And that's one thing that I think is managed very well.
It's not something he does in isolation, right? It's something that's done basically as a result of how the null first and the whole null takeover of HiSec basically happened, right? What is the procedure in this? Because if you have many of these different entities involved and actually taking their cut, you don't want to go all memey and stuff, and you don't want to have all. It's almost like they're hiding the fact that they're null, because of course there's a little bit of I don't know, HiSec versus null thing going on.
Well, it's easy, right? You saw that. You saw that spin up just recently. It's like, hey, we hate this trade tower. Who was it that was saying that? It was Cable, I think, but there were other people as well that. Oh, it was somebody on one of our shows said that trade tower has to go. That trade tower is a abomination. Like, there's no reason to have that trade tower. Well, Tiberius, what do wormholers think of that? Do they have an opinion at all?
For the most part, everybody appreciates the fact that there's a central location for us to go buy Plex. Exuki, who was the CSM last year for representing wormholes, said that the wormhole players have the highest concentration of Plex consumers in the game in terms of its player base. So Plex consumers are people who use Plex to Plex their accounts for 30 days, multiple pilot training, et cetera, and skins, those kinds of things. Yeah. So I could say that for the most part, and speaking personally as well, I appreciate the fact that there is a cheap place for me to go where it's centrally located, that I know that there's a stable price for Plex.
I thought you were going to say he said that people should just be able to buy Plex out of thin air. Like, why do you go to a marketplace for that if you can?
No.
Yeah. Well, anyway, different topic for that one, but I think
that's a very interesting topic.
Yeah.
I would like to know why the consumption is so massively high in wormholes.
Well, because
it's tied back to the fact that mentioning the RMT items, right? So the things that are basically bought from CCP. That's relevant because that is where the majority of value moving through the player structures happened. This is why we had offshoring and all that stuff that Matterall was such a huge fan of.
Not huge fan of, but
well, you had some very strong opinions about offshoring. But I just think that it's worth mentioning that it's why it's viable to run structures in HiSec. Then you can, of course, discuss whether there should be keep stars in HiSec. I don't think that there should be any structures in HiSec that do not actually tie into HiSec economy. I think it's a problem that we got rid of things like Starbase vouchers, because they were one of the things that made it so that when you had POSes in HiSec, not only did you need standing, you also needed to buy these things from PvE guys, so mission runners. So there was just all of these requirements that made it really not as easy to run the equivalent of structures in HiSec. And I think we should get something like that back, because I don't like this. Everything in structures, it's not balanced right. There's just these mistakes with fuel consumption, with requirements to launch, all of these things. So I think that's something that we can look at in the future, and I hope CCP will consider changing that.
Well, there's a lot of room for interesting changes in this, isn't there?
Yeah, because of course we are looking at, and I am 95% sure that this is going to happen. We are going to get an infinite slot nerf on industry. This will be important because.
Why do you say that?
Because it's cancerous. It makes it.
Well, just because you don't like it.
No, it's infinity in space. Infinity in space is bad. Something that can infinitely scale. So I can just add more industrial accounts.
Hold on. We know where we're going now, so we're not going to go that way for now. We got to finish this trade tower thing, and then we can talk about something else, like some of the stuff that we're spinning into. But I just want to make sure that we completed the Tranquility Trade Tower. Is that where we started, and is that where we need to end? I can't even remember where we started.
Oh, it's just how it ties into the root thing, right?
Yeah, the root thing, right. So we talked a little bit about the history of how the trade tower came to be. We talked about why it worked, how it evolved over time with the protection rack it was, how there was collusion with HiSec mercs. Ford took over, Vily took over from there, but Vily did it differently. He took it from them and said everybody gets a cut. So he really was like a mob boss at that point. But then this happens. Trade routes break. And I'm wondering how that affects his plans, because they were smart to get into this HiSec trade market. Are they now going to have to adjust to keep up? What's going to happen there? Is everything going to become regional again and not worth it?
Again,
I think Go ahead.
It's equivalent to when you split the rulership of the Roman Empire into three, and you had this triumvirate. So you get a cut, and you get a cut, and you get a cut, and then we each rule our little areas, right? The interesting thing is that if one of those regions were then suddenly cut off from the other, then it's no longer the same value. Then you need to reshuffle this, right? That is what is going to happen now. The groups and the individuals involved in HiSec structure stuff, in import-export from null, will start making new deals. We'll start shuffling the things around. And this is really a problem in the middle of a war, because they're not going to be talking to each other the same way that they would outside of a war, right?
So Vily said in chat that RMT items are less than half of TTT's revenue. So
that's amazing, because it didn't used to be that way. But go ahead.
In my mind, what that means to me is that that I don't think that TTT is necessarily going to have to adjust unless the market adjusts itself. So, for instance, if the market becomes more regional in terms of empire space, they may or may not have to adjust and maybe look at some other things. If the market becomes more centralized, which in my opinion, I believe that is probably what's going to initially happen, and it's got options to do other stuff later on down the line. I don't think that they're going to have to do very much at all, because if what Vily says is true, that it's less than half of their revenue, that's they're not going to have to worry about that at all, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, there's Vily downplaying the Tranquility Trade Tower.
But the point is that this change is something that's been developing over time, because basically TTT started with mostly having the RMT revenue stream, right? Yeah. But more and more it took actual real market shares from JITA. It's still not in a place I'm comfortable with, because I want to essentially almost nerf JITA to the ground, because I don't like NPC stations. I don't like the fact that you can sit there and just have completely unassailable wealth.
It's a problem because they put in so much work on the artwork for new JITA. Like what's going to happen to all that work if that doesn't become the center point of the universe?
Well, this is where I'm saying my prediction is that they're going to bring in the slot nerf, right, to JITA. They're going to potentially do this removal of all the secondary stations, or at least make them not viable as an alternative, and thus they will boost player structures. player structures will be where you want to go if you want to both trade and if you want to build. That is going to make the number that Vily talked about, Plex, to what I call real revenues, shift even further. So it's going to be like 20% of the income of TTT in the future will be Plex. Everything else will be actual services. And that will create a lot of room for competition and more players being involved, because you still want the convenience of having something close by. So I think TTT and the Null First cartel will allow more smaller operators, at least if they still give them a cut and don't completely undercut and price war with them.
Yeah. Well, I think this helps the Tranquility trade effort. They were already positioned in Amar, so now they have the two polar caps, basically, the north and the south. So, as usual, bigger groups are going to adapt better. They have more resources. It's just like the real world, right?
And I'm hoping to see a Keepstar in almost all regions in HiSec.
Like one trade hub, you mean? Or?
Yeah, one Keepstar, one trade hub in every single region in HiSec eventually, especially if this whole easy connection is kind of nerfed. So I'm still hoping to get the highways back. So you have Ulay, and then you have a fast connection to a specific point in all the empires. But other than that, all the other routes will be more dangerous and more disconnected.
Well, oops, sorry.
Hey, Vily.
Vily, tell us your future plans. What happens in 6 months?
Well, I heard you guys were talking shit, so I was like, I had to come over here and be like, "What's going on, guys?"
I wouldn't characterize it that way, but
no, I'm just joking. We've definitely considered putting HiSec Keepstars up on all the main trade hubs, but as I said, the Tranquility Trading Corporation, we mostly and entirely focus out of the Forge region. We have a different agreement and domain that we operate there with, but for the most part, we try to limit our business and our profile as much as possible and just stay, quiet, professional, and off the radar as much as we can, despite the fact we are obviously on everybody's radar.
Limit your profile. See, it's right there. It's downplay your existence, become part of the backdrop, let it become the Walmart of EVE Online. Like, nobody even questions why they go to Walmart. They just do, because that's where you do business. And
well, people go to Walmart because they provide the best prices and usually comparable service. At the TTT, we aim to provide both the best services and the best prices. So why wouldn't somebody come?
Exactly.
I'm just going to poke fun and say that's because you practically copied Mogul's model.
I think Mogul...
Not at all. Mogul offers good services. Don't get me wrong. They usually have a well-built Sotios and good setup. We just took that to the next level with Sotios, quad-rigged Tikka refineries and higher end trading platforms.
Yeah, you brought the big wallet.
Well, the big wallet, big investment. When you put that capital investment in, it can obviously provide returns for your customers.
Yeah, and it is. I think I'm a huge fan of what TTT did, because it is the natural progression of things, and now the next stages can potentially roll out. And even though you say that you're not necessarily ready to do this, Keepstars in the major regions, but I see that as the natural progression, especially if we get that nerf to NPC, so it's incentivizing players to actually use other player structures. And with the comment from chat, money going to the big blocks like this, especially when it kind of gets divided up, is not really a problem, right? It's actually creating content. When you sink money out of the economy in GDA 4.4, that money is going to do nothing. It is dead money, dead wealth. When you actually get that as a payment to the null blocks, that will be used for all the activities and interesting engagement in EVE Online. And of course, I would have preferred if it was individuals and market speculators as it was in the past, because then you can't really tell what that money is going to be used for. But still, it's the same thing. It will be used for actual creation of content.
Well, I mean, we have a big war going on right now. Does anybody think that, the war is not affected by the income of the alliances involved?
Well, actually, a lot of people think that. It may not be true, but people think there's so much money in
There's
the game
definitely a lot of people think that that is true.
that is okay. Agreeing with me, in other words. Yeah, there's so much money in the coffers of the Imperium and Legacy and PLNC that it doesn't matter how many times you guys lose ship. It doesn't matter.
Well, it's almost the reverse. The Imperium is so poor, Test is so poor, PanFam is so poor that this money is relevant to the discussion, and that's what I'm trying to impart on people. Most people don't understand like what the actual level of alliance finances are, and they're not what people often think they are. Where everybody's got 50 trillion ISK just sitting there waiting to go.
Well, and regardless, the whole thing of people saying that we need more ISK sinks in the game, that's a really bad solution. If anything, we need to turn down the faucet. You don't solve this by adding bigger sinks. That's just dumb.
Let's actually go back to that for a minute, because there's such a misconception that you have unlimited money because of the territory you owned and how much you were able to tax people and all that kind of stuff. Do you think the war will actually be affected by losses and how much people are?
It already is being.
Is it?
You can already see those effects on both sides. Like, it's important to understand the Imperium pulled up keepsters. They unanchored them. Now, why would you do that? Because you're worried about losing them, because they have financial value, because they have strategic value, right? Otherwise, they serve as beautiful delays. You know, there's 5, 6 keepstars been unanchored already. Every single one of them would have represented a week we would have been in Cloud Ring, probably. Think about that. That would have been literally a month and a half they could have just paid for to see us in Cloud Ring versus Fountain. But instead, they unanchored them.
But that's not really ISK, right?
That's absolutely ISK.
No, it's not. It's actually resources, and it's the potential that rebuilding stuff like this is not going to be built from ISK. It's going to be built from resources, and it's going to require time, effort, and a lot of manpower. So it's not really about ISK, because you can't really buy these things at the same scale that they have been unanchored. That would take a lot of time to actually replace.
No, you could pretty much just buy them. Like, we've literally bought 4 in the last month.
Didn't Boat show us a screenshot with 17 keep stars in the tank?
Yeah, but that was a singularity screenshot.
Yeah.
Nobody actually has 17 keep stars. Like,
yeah, you know what, we got to do a lot.
I would be surprised if the Imperium had even one more than the ones they've unanchored. So.
Oh, interesting. You really think they're hurting that much?
Well, I know when they were unanchoring the. Yeah, I'm not going to say why I know what I know, but
okay.
Like, I know they don't have some big stockpile of keepstars sitting around, so it's very obviously a CC screenshot, obviously from the fact he hid the estimated value amount as well.
Yeah.
That was
really the biggest giveaway there.
The life tap guy here says we unanchored 1 keep star. You say they unanchored 5, so you guys are on different pages.
They unanchored 3 in Cloud Ring, 1 in Aquarius, and I thought they unanchored 1 in Delve. Maybe I'm wrong about that one.
Maybe that's what he meant too. 1 in Delve, yeah.
But there was definitely 3 Tech F and Aquarius unanchored, BD, 5-7C, and I can't remember what the other Cloud Ring one was. 9 Tech 4, I think. Yeah, maybe.
Right. Okay, so not just in Delve, right? Like they haven't just anchored them in Delve. They have anchored them over the last year in different places. This
is all over the last month.
Okay.
Or correction, sorry, I don't want to be caught in a 5-6 week lie. It's like the last 2 months.
5-6 week lie. Okay. All right. No, I'm glad you're adding some specificity and stuff, because one of the things we want to do is to dampen down rhetoric that is not true. Like, you know, and Boat throws so much at us a lot of times that we don't know what's true and what's not. So when he produced that screenshot, we got into a lot of trouble because we didn't apparently fight him hard enough on it, even though we did fight him on it, saying if we can't see the value, we can't vouch for that screenshot.
Well, I'd almost say that the only reason I would be inclined to think that it's fake is because the value is too low. And I would not be surprised at all if they have way more than 17 keep stars on hangar floors in Spare.
In the Imperium, they have nowhere near that amount of assets, not even remotely close.
I've heard this too. Like I've imagined they have treasure troves that are just piled to the ceiling and, you know, piles of gold. And then I hear from contacts in NC and PL that have spies and goons or whatever, and they tell me like, nope. And you can tell because of this, that, and the other. And I'm like, oh, there's two completely different stories here. Either Imperium and Legacy are super rich, or they're not.
Well, it's important to understand there's the belief about what the level of stockpiles goons should have, and then there's the reality of what they do have, right? Because the point Caleb was making there, it's like they had all this kind of income. It's crazy that they wouldn't have stockpiles, just through the roofs. And everybody else is like, yeah, that makes sense. But then when you look at, the actual facts on the ground, they don't. Which is, we were making like fake RMT jokes. And I say fake because I'm like, we're not being serious. We're just trolling around.
Yeah.
But like, RMT jokes like, oh, Mittens is buying a new car kind of stuff, right? Like, obviously everybody knows that's not true. But like, there's this line where it's, people are like, well, they were mining like 17 trillion a month. Where did it all go, right? And the reality is, a lot of it went to players' wallets, SRP, a variety of expenses. Like the fact there's 50 keep stars in Delve alone is a component of that.
Yeah.
Like all of these things add up, and the amount that the Imperium has stockpiled, it's very obvious that it's not anywhere close to what it should be. And we can see that from simple things like when they moved the Dread cache to Fountain, for example. It was barely 100 Dreads. When Legacy moved to Fat, we had to move 700 capitals. It was like, come on, guys. Like, it's very obvious when you're trying to upplay something, I guess you could say. And it's funny, you notice you never see the Imperium actually talk about what they have stockpiled for very obvious reasons.
Of course you wouldn't. And again, I'm just back at the whole thing.
Speaking out of complete ignorance.
Go ahead, we do. I'm just kidding, Tiberius. Go ahead.
I was speaking out of complete ignorance. I'm sorry, I was glitching out a little bit there. My question is there a possibility that these assets are, just held incredibly close to their chest?
Yes. That's exactly what I was trying to point out.
To a degree, there's some level of that, because Goons have always been known to be one of those investor alliances where they take their assets and they invest them. But the problem is, assets held close to the chest don't get you any value in war.
And the point is that you do not have spies in the places where they would have to look. I know you don't.
Don't need a spy.
How can you know that? How can you know that, Caleb?
Because I know how you compartmentalize this, and I know how I did it just with my 500-man alliance.
It doesn't matter.
There was never anyone that could see the actual major assets of the organization. And of course, mostly, I think I had about the same amount in my hangar floors as was available in the entire alliance. So I'm just pointing out that the people that control things behind the scenes, the upper echelons, do not let you see these things, and it
not
is
true.
Very
Their discipline
easy.
is not.
It's very easy to hide 50 to 100 trillion in your personal account.
Okay, we're not talking. Whoa, 50, 100 trillion. Yeah, I don't think you're even remotely on the ballpark there. But let me put it like this: you don't ever tell your membership we have no super capital cash if you have a super capital cache. That's one of those things where it instills confidence, right? I'm happy to say, Legacy, we have a Titan and super carrier cache. We got a big pile of them sitting in my hangar, ready to go when you lose ships. Imperium, skirmish commanders, be careful. We don't want to lose any ships. We don't have any cash. It's like, why would you ever say that to your members if you actually have a cache?
Well, it's like saying don't spend a lot of money. We don't have a lot of money when you actually do. Like, that just seems logical to me. Keeps them from spending a lot of money.
Just because there's like 250 trillion available in the coffers in combined resources of actual raw materials and ISK doesn't mean that you necessarily say all of that to your members, and you don't tell them what your entire nest egg savings are. But I'm just pointing out that this is fact from what I know, just from one of the major actual market guys in Goons activities. I'm just trying to scale it up in size. And if you think that they are as poor as not being able to have 17 keep stars on hangar floors, I think you are wrong, really. Sorry.
Listen, they don't even know how much money they have in some ways. Like,
you're fine to think I'm wrong. It doesn't change the fact that they're so poor is part of why they're being invaded, right? Like, it's a, I don't know how to put it. Like, A follows B.
For the audience, what is A? What is B?
Well, it's just if you're basing your strategic moves on that, I'm just going to say good luck.
We have been having good luck. Thank you.
Well, here's the thing.
A follows B means getting invaded follows being poor. Showing weakness follows, people coming towards you.
That was certainly the case, I think, in the First World War B, right? Or Casino War, whatever you want to refer to it as, in that people really talked about Gobbin's head faking Mittani, and that was a sign of weakness, and that created the environment to invade. I didn't quite understand all that, but they did have that narrative going 5 years ago.
The big weakness shown before World War B1 was actually in CO2, of all places.
When they were feeding,
CO2,
right?
Yeah, they were feeding Titans and Supers and Fleets to low-sec mercs, and that was a big factor in what kind of led to the snowball up of World War B1.
Yeah, that was your point. You're the one that pointed that out to me. Very interesting and makes a lot of sense. So maybe that's the reason you don't see a lot of dreads out there now on the Imperium side, or a lot of big ships that might create a feeding environment. Although I don't know if it would make a difference because everybody's already here and everybody's already motivated to attack you. So it's not like it's going to bring even more people in.
Correct.
Yeah, so it wouldn't matter. Here's the thing, Caleb, and this is why I'm going to push back on what you're saying. One of the things that surprised me was that Mittani was surprised when he saw somewhere around 800 or 1,000 supers travel north in order to glass Olive Tribute and Vale, right? What was that, a year and a half ago? And he was like, yeah, I thought we had like 600, maybe 700. He said that on, in front of Discord. We had like 40 people in channel. And that's what I believe too. I was trying to figure out the calculations and I was like, yeah, they probably have like 600-700. But the Goonswarm guys were like, there was one guy that was like, I forget who it was too. It might have been Commander A's, was like, nope, we're going to have over 1,000. Somebody guessed really high. And I was like, that's ridiculous. And he was right. But it was a guess because there was other guys that were guessing same as me, somewhere in between. So there's a lot of people. They were all over the map. In other words, nobody really knows how much money is in the coffers. Not even the leaders of Goonswarm.
I'm just finding this very hilarious because just in my group of friends, I can easily amass the wealth that equates what was in that hangar. Like easy peasy, right? And I know that Goons have members that are way more wealthy than my collectors. Not all of them.
You are talking about members.
Yeah, and again, when that is needed to be fielded in this war, that will come into play. And of course, it's a matter of how high up are you, how trusted are you, and how much are you willing to sacrifice some of your own wealth. And I'm just saying that just from Cabal Investments and Aerith's personal assets, of course he's not around right now.
Yeah, Aerith's not around at all, is he?
No, but I know how rich individual Goons are.
Do you think he left his money?
So do I, Caleb. I know how. I'm never going to even try to make the statement the Goons membership isn't one of the richest member bases. But what I am continuing to say is that history has shown us time and time again that when push comes to shove, the rich member base doesn't put their trillionisc into the alliance when it's losing. They don't. Every single time.
Maybe not if they really don't want to, and if they see that there's a way out, so they don't really have to.
They earned that ISK, not Goonswarm. They earned that ISK. They're not going to give all their money to Goonswarm. Goonswarm should be rich right now, right?
No, and I agree, and this is why I have said on many occasions that I see Delve as a use it or lose it situation. You can't easily, to the same extent, evacuate your stuff. So you have to get in there. You have to be part of it, and you have to put some of your own wealth on the line. Maybe not all of it, but hell, I'm saying even if just 25% of the personal wealth of the Goon members get on the table as actual assets, it's going to be a tough fight. Just saying.
I think a lot of stuff goes into what a tough fight is and what isn't. We just saw an amazing win. It didn't take that many people to kind of unplug a situation. So I think there's a lot of variables.
And of course, many have said money doesn't win wars. Of course it doesn't. The really important thing is making sure that the players are interested and invested in fighting. Because without actual pilots, you can have all the wealth in the world and it won't matter for shit.
Doesn't money win morale? Doesn't it help?
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. I was like, so if you're playing the long game, the best way to get people to continue fight is to make sure that you have enough money to fund the ships in order for people to show up. Because if you're not funding their ships, people aren't going to show up.
But I think that's more true if you are attacking than when you're defending. When you're defending, you don't really the money is not really your motivating factor. It's survival. And I do think that, and I have said this is a little bit of a potential existential threat. Well, as long as we consider the fact that there's really no death in Eve, right? And I agree with Vily that it might be possible to cut down goons to almost half their size, but they will recuperate and they will come back. It's not going to be the death of them at all. And I think they're going to come back stronger, just like last time.
Okay. But what evidence do you have? Actually, no, but following...
History.
What?
History. If you succeed to survive as an organization,
but things
you always get better.
Not the
That's
same
even
people.
true.
No, not the same.
No, but that doesn't matter. As long as the core is upheld, it will still come back in its next form. And I think that's true for all groups in Eve. NC, PL, Horde, they have all had, maybe not existential threats of that scale, but every time there's a challenge, they come out on the other side better, stronger.
We've seen just as many alliances disappear, become unpopular. Look, there will always be cool kids. There will always be cool kids, but they may not be the same cool kids, right? Because you age out of being a cool kid.
But that's when you lose the heads. If you lose the heads, the organization starts dying. If there's not
I think when the heads lose the charisma, the place starts dying. Like literally, you can become uncool. It's not the same popular guys over and over again. It takes a lot of talent, like a Madonna or a, David Bowie, to reinvent in a way that is interesting enough to keep people and attract new people. And that is a special talent that people have in this game, some of them. But it's not for always. Like, it just depends.
I like when chat criticizes me for saying what I just said.
Oh, like, what do you mean?
That you don't win a war with money. You win a war with actual members. Money is only...
Well, if you don't win a war with money, why is it called the casino war?
Because, as I just said, how does that not tie into what I just said? I just said that as an attacker, money can be an incentivizing thing. And if you know that you're going to pretty much get every value back that you lose, of course you're going to keep attacking. So money mattered a lot in the casino wars, but now
but not this time.
Less of a factor.
That's a good zinger, man.
Just having some fun.
Yeah. Oh, look at that, Ron. Ron liked it. All right, well.
So did you guys get a chance to talk about the new Keepstar today?
No, I didn't know if that was public or not.
Oh yeah, goons were attacking it and weren't able to kill it, so it's obviously pretty public.
Tell us what happened.
Oh, there was a new Keepstar anchored in Iridia today.
What is a Keepstar doing in Iridia? How does this
I don't know. What could a Keepstar in Iridia represent?
Who put that down? Was it you guys? Legacy?
It was put down by Horde.
Horde put it down.
Well, actually, Fraternity anchored it in Horde. It was transferred to Horde, I believe.
All right, well, Horde just took over all of the region of Fountain, which is right next to Iridia. Iridia is low sec.
Indeed, they did.
And so the Imperium clearly didn't want it there, so they attacked it, it sounds like, and they weren't able to reinforce it.
Yeah, they only showed up with bombers to attack it. I don't know if they didn't have enough time to prep or they weren't sure what was going on, but they showed up with some bombers. I think Initiative formed Unins and didn't come. And that was kind of the defense of the Marmia Keepstar, which is definitely an interesting
development,
new step in the war, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know if that's Ron USMC. I'm being corrected. That might not be him. It might be fake. But whatever. That's interesting. So then we didn't cover that because we didn't know if it was public or not. But there's a Keepstar now in Iridia, and it belongs to Horde. That's a power center for super capital ships. That's the main way I think about a keep star. So that's a significant piece on the map. Why isn't it in Fountain? Why did you put it in Iridia? What they put
Well,
in?
if you look at the location of Marmiha controls all of the routes from Delve to Empire. All of the midpoints through Iridia are in range of Marmiha.
We're gonna look it up.
The only way to get out otherwise is through other ranges, other nullsec regions.
So here's where the system is as soon as that comes up. And if we look at the Iridium map, we're able to see like what it can hit. So that's the majority of Iridia. And you were saying it covers all the what?
Imagine there's a mountain pass you need to go through to leave Delve towards Empire in anything other than a jump freighter. All of the systems covered within the range of Marmiha would be that pass.
Oh my god. You guys are blocking the exits?
Who knows?
Also, is that where that's not where asset safety goes, is it?
No, asset safety from Fountain goes to Hoffib, where PanFam was actually staged. Although there's actually another system. I think it's Oblinol or something like that.
I
Where
thought it was
the north half
Ermila
of
or
Fountain
something.
goes. Ermelin is Delve, yeah.
Ermila. Okay. Well, that's interesting. So strategically, it's hard for us to tell. We need a strategist like yourself here, but you can see here's the Marmaha, and it covers all the exits going through Iridia. So that is a significant move. Very interesting. Well, there's going to be some interest from the Imperium, maybe trying to get rid of it. I don't know if their bomber was a serious effort, but maybe they're going to march on this thing, try to break it down.
Well, usually once a keep stars up, the effort to remove them is exponentially different. That's why they're so critical to be anchored, I guess you could say.
Yeah. All right, that's cool. That's an interesting new bit of information. I have to look at the map. All right. Well, cool. We talked about today some more fallout from the Nargia changeover to no security and how that breaks the trade hubs up into more regional, at least 2 hemispheres now. We talked about how that might affect players interested in setting up shop. And we wondered, like, is this the beginning of carving up the map to make everything more regional, less global? Maybe there'll be a global class of traders with jump freighters. How do you think, Vily, since we have you here, Igniting is something that you put up not that long ago. How is that affected by this, the loss of Nargia?
Actually, it's a pleasant change for Igniting, as Igniting is the best low sec port to head inland towards Jita from. So obviously, if we're increasing the shipping lanes of jump freighters, the seaway, I guess you could say, we now control the best port. So obviously that helps Igniting.
Yeah, let's look at jump freighter ranges from Igniting. So Igniting is actually like 3 jumps from Jita, right?
There's 2 mid systems between Igniting and Jita, yeah.
I wonder if you can just hop right over into Amar. No, I don't think so. Does Basgarin take on new meaning as a secondary Keepstar area?
It does at least a little bit, yeah. Basgarin's got some new love for sure.
I forgot about this, but Mela can reach Igniting?
Melo's gone.
No, it's gone, but that system can reach it. I remember that's why Mela was important. Would reach Igniton.
That sounds correct. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the only system in the Forge that can. Which is why I was looking at when we were trying to figure out where to put down. I'll just tell this publicly, but when we were looking at putting down Sanctuary Keep Stars, we are trying to figure out where to put them. I consulted some people on where the places might be, and one of the people I consulted was actually Kenneth Feld from PL, because he's such a heavy duty industrialist, and he was like, Mela has to be Mela. That's where a Keep Star needs to be. And I was like, can't. That's where we're taking one out, so it can't be there unless we wait a while and then put it back. Like do something like that, which was kind of what I was thinking. So Igniton was the place I was going to put a Keep Star, and the other place would have been Mela for that range reason that you see there. But not to be, because you have to have a powerful military to back you up like Vily has. And that takes years to build up. So I'm not doing it. Well, anyway, good job getting to the point that you're at. As far as the war goes, Vily, how are you feeling about it right now?
Feeling pretty good. We're on schedule. Things are going nicely. We've had no real hard surprises. Obviously, we had one minor kind of block in Y2, but a day later we had OP reinforced, and we're back on track, and things are going nice and smooth for the most part.
I think yesterday you expressed like, look, the battle itself was a draw as far as money lost, and we didn't kill it that time. It's still on the menu. So what's the big deal? And I said, oh, it's a big morale shift and that sort of thing. Because you could definitely see people get excited from the Imperium. I think they very much demonstrated how excited they were.
Well, they should be. I mean, it was the first time they'd really won any battles in Fountain for the better part of the last month, right? It's all power to them. They got a win on the board. When you're being shut out, it's good to get that kind of a feeling.
Yeah. But it was the first time, I think we were looking at it saying, look, this is the first time these two groups are going to really collide on purpose. And I wouldn't say that was a fair representation of where things are at, because it was a really good strike on a bombing run. But there was some good stuff done by the Imperium tactically, and it looked like Pappy was having a hard time putting their plan into action. One or two or three or four things are going wrong or whatever. So it just looked like all this was executed well on the Imperium side. Is that a sign of things to come?
Yes.
Who knows? I mean, the dynamics are going to start shifting here as Phase 3 approaches. And certainly once we're in a situation where we've either pushed the borders or have caps and supers in range, then it's definitely going to be a different dynamic for sure.
Yeah, well,
I've been calling all this prologue, right? Because it is. We will not see any serious stuff until you reach Stealth.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been planned that way, right? Phase 1 is, literally was staging deployments, etc. Stage 2, probing. We probed ourselves into an entire region of Fountain, which was not intended or expected, but it happened. And then Phase 3 is the approach on Delph, and that's where we always knew it was going to get hot and heavy and crazy.
Just a small related topic that I would like your opinion on, being a CSM member and all. Do you think Delph is a little bit broken design-wise and geography-wise from CCP? Do you think it needs to be fixed?
Well, they're not going to fix it now.
No more than the drone regions are, I think.
Well, it's a lot harder to get into, right? Because you basically have like no entry except gates, really.
Well, from north and east, but from the northeast angle, Iridia, you've got tons of jump range options to get in.
Yeah, but it just feels like an unfair island, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like Australia in Risk. I've made that comparison a ton of times. Actually, when we were describing strategy planning and stuff,
Wow.
It's literally like Australia, right?
That is the best comparison I've ever heard. It's like that's always been the strategy for people playing Risk. It's like go get Australia and then just build up. That's exactly what happened to Dell.
Yeah, because it's very similar. You can only really come in from 2 or 3 angles. It's pretty easy to lock them out. but every region has its own kind of geography quirks, right? As I say, the drone regions are probably the most broken with no NPC stations and no real way to come in from nullsec aside from like an insane, Keepstar chain through like Great Wildlands or something. So, every region has its advantages and disadvantages. Delve and Quarius and Period Basis have some unique variables, but they're not crazy.
Well, they're certainly not going to change it right now, so it'll have to be later.
Yeah, I think Cheetah just pointed out that almost makes a fountain something like the Akusk impossible to hold, but really valuable.
Well, I mean, listen, when I say we weren't expecting you guys to abandon Fountain, we weren't, but we were, we understood how difficult Fountain is to hold from Delve. Anytime you're in a situation where you're taking regional gates and getting caps through regionals, it's a nightmare waiting to happen. We definitely expected you guys to make like the trade space for time play, and we figured we would be 2-3 months in Fountain trying to get that place purged correctly. But it's a different play, but it's respectable. Like it's not crazy. It's just different.
Are you going to be cleaning up Quarius too? Same way?
Quarius is a bit different because most of Quarius is it's blocked by 49U. So unless we're coming in from a different angle, then you really can't handle much of Quarius. We got really lucky to have all of Quarius be held by that Renter Alliance where we could like flip all the hubs and cut off all the jump bridges. But until we're really in the phase of like the approach on Delve, that to a degree that is Quarius, I guess. As Quarius is the approaching floodplains, let's say.
I'm just kind of waiting for that entirely surrounded scenario where they're all in Australia with all their armies and completely the rest is just pounding on the door.
All the chips are pushed up to that, what is it, Lower India region or whatever. Yeah, at some point it's going to get hairy. I've already seen a couple of glancing blows, but I think the invasion of Delve ought to be pretty messy. Hopefully, right, from out here, the story point, the fan point, we want to see some stuff. That's why I think Saturday, or was it Sunday? No, it was Saturday. Was it Friday? It was such a big surprise. It was an interesting dynamic situation which led to some drama, and that's what we like to see. All right. We have anything else?
Nope.
So how about those Edencom boys?
What about Edencom?
No, it was a joke. Niarja fell, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, in their defense, they were coming off of like a 24-hour fight for a different system, and then Narja broke. That was like, they were exhausted by the time that thing came. I don't think they did. I think they couldn't recover.
The timing was unfortunate, to say the least.
The other thing is that Narja, to me, is like COVID, right? It happened in 2 days, and it changes the world. I mean, a week ago, it wasn't even on the radar, and now it's created an entire new set of events that are going to, we haven't seen them yet, are going to change a lot of things. All in 2 days. And I'm not sure you can get Narja back once it's gone full liminality. But yeah, Edencom needs some help apparently, or they need to get some sleep, and we'll ask Baleful on Sunday what happened. Or actually, yeah, because I think it finally by, what was it, Monday, it finally went full liminality.
Yeah, well, almost 24 hours? It wasn't very long.
Yeah, it was super fast. Super fast. By the way, once again, to be clear, we heard that Ron and Dunk were fighting for Eden Calm, rallied the troops, and Goonswarm got in there and made sure that you guys were frustrated, or at least they were. And you said, no, we didn't really get involved until after Goonswarm was involved. So what was the egg and what was the chicken?
So there was lots of discussions internally. We had basically chosen to stay neutral, aka pilots can do whatever they want. We have a bunch of pilots who fight for Edencom, and we have a bunch of pilots who fight for the Trigs. So like even one of our FCs is one of the main Trig FCs kind of thing. So we were just doing our thing. Guys were going on both sides. Brave made a post saying like the coalition should do it, for Edencom, and everybody's like, okay, good luck with you, Brave. Like, if test leadership isn't going to tell me to do it, you're not going to, kind of thing. So that was whatever. And then Goonswarm showed up with like 150-man fleet, and then I'm like, all right, well, I guess we'll declare for Edencom because they're helping the Trigs. So, and then they were like, all right, well, test is declared for Edencom, so we're going to help even Trigs even more. And
we're going to help harder.
Yeah.
Oh, they were already okay. But
at that point, Edencom was winning, and I didn't even think much of it. Right? So it was Edencom was starting to pull it back. It went from like 10 or 15% back up to like 27%. Then I went to bed, and I wake up, and it's at like 4% from final luminality. I'm like, well, fuck. I guess we didn't win that one. It's
that'll teach you to go to sleep.
Well, I mean, the thing is with the invasion systems, there's only so much a group can do, right? Like there's not infinite sites, so it's the sites were basically max capacity when we were discussing what to do, and we're like, we'll just wait and see what happens in the morning if we want to go up and help them when it turns low sec if it does. But then in the morning it was over, so we're like, all right, well, fair enough.
I think that system, and it's not surprising, it was always a system that everybody was watching because it was going to be so pivotal and meaningful. But that system went faster than any other system I've seen turn.
I think it moved as fast as it did because this has been a discussion amongst the Kybernauts and the HiSec community for a long time, and all the Triglavian runners, just because they knew that was potentially on the list. And as soon as it was scouted out, they all dropped everything and went over to it because they knew it was going to have such an enormous impact on the game as a whole. And I think a lot of people were excited at that potential to be a part of, such a huge pivotal moment in the game's history, essentially.
Yeah, talk about historical moment. That's a huge one. What about the I lost my point, but attacking Narja, knocking it out. What about the? Here's what I was going to say. The whole thing about lighting Sinos, because people mentioned that it must have been low sec. In low sec systems, Edencom does not allow you to light a Sino. They Sino jam it. Therefore, Edencom is worse for players because they block low sec systems. Or no, but only HiSec, right? Only HiSec uses these Triglavian invasions. So I'm trying to figure that out. Somebody mentioned that Edencom was less desirable because they Sino-jam things. Ring a bell?
Edencom's really annoying with the Sino jammers. That's definitely true.
But Triglavians aren't. Like, can you Sino into a system taken over by Triglavians? I don't know that you can.
I don't actually know. Like one that used to be HiSec, no.
Okay, so here it says you cannot light a Sino in liminality systems. So, all right, well, I got to get to the bottom of that because I couldn't figure out why that was important at all. So it's invasions. Oh, they can happen in low sec, and that's where it makes a difference. Thank you. I wasn't sure about that. So in low sec, you can light Sinos, except when Edencom's in charge, and then you can't get in there. So they kind of block it out. Oh, well, that makes a lot of sense because then Edencom is creating like a HiSec, or they're creating more security. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, that's all I have today. Have a look. Vily, always a pleasure to have you in here. Even if you are coming in slinging one-liners to defend yourself, still a
Hey,
pleasure.
man, don't be talking bad things about the towers. We just try to help
Those are your
pilots and
babies.
we didn't do what they got to do.
Wait, you said towers. Is there sister? Does it have a sister?
Annoying.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You got the story firsthand from the sneaky and really having sweaty palms and everything.
Yeah. That's got to be Ron. Only Ron talks that way. Good show, dudes. Like, that's got to be Ron. I'm about to raid Ron, so get on.
King Meerkat. Oh, you know what it is? He's streaming right now, so he probably can't have you guys on his screen or something. So he has to use like an alt account.
Good. Well, we're coming over right now. So hang out with Ron. It's a great time for the rest of the day. I'm going there too. Thanks, guys, for showing up. Appreciate it. We will see you tomorrow. And remember, give us thumbs up. Here we go. Oh, he's not the real Ron. Oh.